Okay, so we're going to look at revealing the letter S over time, and we're going to use the stroke effect to do that. So this is another variation on painting with a brush stroke and then using that to reveal and hide certain parts of the piece of text. Okay, so I'll duplicate this particular layer just to give myself, actually no, I'll go in here and use this layer. Okay, so the way that you go about doing this is first of all to create a mask on the text that you want to work with. So I'm going to use the pen tool, zoom in and trace the curves of the S. It doesn't need to be exact, but you want to get it as accurate as you can. Okay, and once I have a mask created, then I'm going to be able to use that mask in conjunction with the stroke effect. Now the stroke effect, you just type in a search in effects and presets and you can drag it out there or you can drag it down there and it will apply itself to that layer and you'll see it pop up in the effect controls section up here next to your project panel. Now it comes with a default setting of white stroke 2 pixels width, which is not much use to us. So the first thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to change the color. White on white might be a little bit confusing, so I'll make it red. And the brush size needs to be brought up so that it covers the entire letter. Now I might just modify this slightly so that it goes off the end of the S there, and you could also change the hardness so that you don't get a kind of a feathered reveal. The hardness is set by default to 79, so I'll bump that up to 100. Now at this point I have a static stroke. This is what the stroke is sometimes intended for. It's just to basically render some sort of a line on screen for various reasons. In this instance, what I want to do is I want to do the same thing that I was doing with the paint brush strokes and the stencil alpha blend mode, but this essentially kind of packages that stencil alpha functionality into the effect itself. The same thing will happen, but I can go straight to it in here by changing on original image to reveal original image, and that will still be static because I haven't actually animated the brush stroke. So what I'll do next is I'll open up the effect on the timeline, and by tapping E you can bring up whatever the topmost effect is in your layer. Open that and you'll see that I've got my start and my end. My start is at 0, my end is at 100, so effectively the brush stroke goes from, I'll just switch it back on actually. The brush stroke goes from 0 to 100% start to end. But if I bring that end back, you'll see that I can bring the end back to the start essentially by bringing it to 0, keyframing it, and then further out the timeline bringing that back to 100. So now my brush stroke is being applied along that mask in a fairly accurate way, and I can switch that back to reveal original image now, or sorry, yes, reveal original image, and you'll see that it paints it on pretty well. Now, as I mentioned, the limitations for this, a technical limitation is that the brush size is limited to 50 pixels in Adobe CS6, which is fine because I'm working with this size text. But if I were to, even if I were to, select that text and make it bigger, or make it bold, for example, and try and reposition that mask. Now, if I want to go from this pre-comped version of S back out up a level, all I need to do is go into this flow chart and it'll bring me up a layer, and you'll see that even if I try and modify the size of this mask to fit the S, that's getting a bit confusing there. Beg your pardon. Yeah, I'll go back in here. I've lost where I was now. Where was I? There I am. Okay. So even if I bring up the mask here and try and scale that up to fit the new bigger S, you'll see that it'll scale the mask, but it will just render that paint stroke continuously as a certain width. So you'll see even if the mask gets bigger, the paint stroke stays the same size. So that's a big limitation on the effectiveness of this in certain situations. Now the other one is more of a practical concern, that if you don't need to be that methodical or meticulous about what shape the brush stroke needs to follow, then you might be better off going back in and using the manual kind of painting on, using the write on effect and the paint effect on a separate layer. But this is certainly a good way of getting accuracy into your masking effect. Okay, so you can see it once more.